And now, a board game review from me, Joe Sallen.
You're watching the Sallen Coefficient, a new and nuanced approach to board game reviewing by a core gamer for core gamers. Ever wondered what they mean when they say fun, or good, or bad, or awesome? At the Sallen Coefficient, I will tell you more to help you make up your mind about whether or not a game is worth your time.
Sponsored by Game Surplus, bringing the world of board games to you at GameSurplus.com.
Hi folks, Joe Sallen here with another review using the Sallen Coefficient, a metric for determining whether or not a game is worth your gaming time. The Sallen Coefficient is going to compare the positive and the negative and give you a number that tells you whether or not this game is one that I would recommend for people that don't share my same interests and my same subject matter, obsessions and whatnot. So what the Sallen Coefficient looks to do is tries to help me to communicate the elements of a game that I would feel are ones I can give my opinion and have them apply to other people, whereas like my own personal subjective ratings based on like maybe I enjoy a theme or something, that would be my own personal review. So I'll tell you both aspects of that, and you might notice I've got another little, well, not necessarily too little, but another party game and another what seems to be a sort of mass market game, and in this case we've got the Brady Bunch Party Game. And I don't know about you, but when I first saw this image, I thought, oh no, this could be like a trivia game. It could be something that's about Brady Bunch trivia, and I don't know those things. I don't feel like I would be that interested in participating in the Brady Bunch trivia. Just in general, trivia games are something that those are kind of your real mass market stuff. However, this game is not a trivia game. It's actually a social deduction game. And first off, to everybody who's looking at this video and thinking, all right, Joe, you better not disappoint me here, and you're expecting me to give you to just take a mass market game and tell you that it's, no, you can't do this isn't modern design. Well, first of all, if that's the only thing that you're looking for, you might want to skip this video. And like when it comes down to it, this type of a game design here, I mean, I wanted to give this game a chance, just like any other game. Even though I was not particularly drawn to the idea of the Brady Bunch, it is a very relevant and something that can connect to many people. Like I've seen many episodes. I've probably seen 20, 30 episodes, and I've seen that Hawaii episode of the Brady Bunch just a ton of times. The one where they're getting like haunted by that tiki, and they think that it's good, but it's actually bad. There's a lot of like positive memories that I have thinking of the Brady Bunch family, and it is definitely like a trope or a certain structure in my head that like when you talk about the Brady Bunch, I immediately think of like a big family that's just full of these sorts of squabbles and in between siblings. And and just in general, they've got like the 70s look to it, and Alice, who's always the housekeeper that's always coming to sort of try to keep some semblance of order going on in the house. But the kids are always very good-natured. They're just doing things kids do. The Brady Bunch Party Game is a social deduction game, which one player at the start of the game will take on the role of Alice, the housekeeper, and then Alice is going to try to figure out by the end of the game which of the Brady children, which are the other players, has caused the most mischief. Now, whoever has caused the most mischief becomes the troublemaker, and if Alice points out who that person is, and actually has to secretly choose who they are, like using a card, if they're right, if Alice is right, then Alice wins. But she doesn't win on her own. There are other Brady Bunch children that's on Alice's side, and they are known as the Tattletales. They're the ones that have caused the least mischief. Then there are additionally Brady Bunch children that are on the troublemaker's side, who are called sidekicks. So the way that this whole system works is that you actually don't know if you're one of the children, you don't know what team you're on until the cards flip at the end of the game, and you add up all of the mischief you've caused. Whoever's caused the most is a troublemaker, and then whoever's caused the least is the tattletale. And depending on number of players, you might have multiple tattletales, and there will be other people who are called sidekicks that want to win with the troublemaker, and they have an amount of mischief higher than the tattletales but lower than the troublemaker. So it's a dynamic, fluid party game in which social deduction is mainly being used throughout the game rounds by having players pick a card from another player that's been played that round, which tells how much mischief they're causing. They look at that card and then put it back, and then there's a certain amount of people that do that every round, and that'll happen throughout 4 rounds until the game ends. Alice, on the other hand, only has anywhere from 1 to 3, I should say, attempts to look at cards herself. But she has to be more judicious because in the 4 rounds, she's not going to get to look every single round and be able to like sort of hone in on one player or anything like that. It'll be a very, like for Alice, you have to kind of rely on what you're seeing people do, and you do have to use social deduction. The game actually, I would recommend that you follow the sort of strategy tips in the rule book because it tells you basically if you're Alice, you have opportunities to ask questions, and it just says go right for those questions that are the most like basic mechanical bits of information that are going to force players into telling the truth or lying. Things like, what numbered card did you play? All these numbers are 1 through 6. They're all different amounts of mischief, with the 6 being like a broken vase, and with the 1 being like just leaving the Chinese checkers out on the floor. So asking people just what numbered card did you play? Or you'll know, and all the players will know, which players looked at other people's cards. And so you'll say, okay, whose card did you look at? What number did they play? And you can be cagey about it, but the rulebook basically just says go straight for those questions. I mean, that's what the game is all about. Like, who do you think is the troublemaker? And then Alice, on top of that, every round gets to give a cookie to one of the players at the table. Now, this is not only a hilarious thing to give, like, hey, take a cookie, you know? Hey, you want a cookie? Really proud of you, you know? But on top of that, it has 2 effects in the game. One of them is to let that player get an extra opportunity to look at another player's card. So Alice really wants to have like sort of a trusting relationship built up with the player that gets the cookie. On top of that, at the end of the game, those cookies will either count as positive points, increasing the value of mischief, thus allowing a player to choose to betray Alice and turn those 3 cookies into positives, and then, or they can use them as negatives. So it's like, kind of like, has that funny reveal at the end of the game when you see who's going to use their cookies towards the positive and who's going to use them towards the negative. Alice knows all this before she actually decides on who she thinks the troublemaker is. So, and then at the end of the game, you count up the amount of mischief, and then whoever has the most is that troublemaker, and then you just kind of have it on this scale, and you'll know who's going to be on what team, and then finally you know whether or not your team won. So, in general, the Brady Bunch Party Game is a fluid social deduction game that, in my opinion, is something I've never played before. If there is a game that's like this out there, I've not played it, and even if there is a game, this sort of thematic integration, the use of the Brady Bunch as this family that's really centered around the kids in the family, whereas other TV shows might be more about the adults in the family and the kids, this is more centered on the kids, which makes sense that this would be a game about causing mischief and getting caught. So it works thematically very, very well. And presentation-wise, the game just looks absolutely fantastic. The board, the center board in the center of the table uses this AstroTurf that looks just super 70s. Nice bright colors, sort of a pastel filter that's being used. And then on top of that, every single card that causes mischief, that's the mischief cards, has like a natural thematic color scheme that they've used 70s artwork, like the sort of bars that travel towards the right of the screen. They've used the artwork it's a very aesthetically pleasing and relevant, I guess I should say, or appropriate for the type of artwork and theme that we're going for here. I mean, just the box itself has like all the personalities, and it has like that sort of 3D. Usually I'm not a fan of these sorts of things because as you're walking around, it's just confusing. You can't really keep your eye on stuff. But this makes sense. I mean, it's just like the beginning of the show when you've got all the different moving, talking heads. So, I mean, the box of the game makes sense to me as well. And I think that's really cool. The way that the actual board works is very functional as well. It gives players a central place to play their cards, which is nice because you're going to have to lift them up and look at them. If you were playing these right in front of you, it would make it a little bit more tough. You'd have to be reaching across the table, and this really reduces any sort of that type of nonsense. You flip the board over at the end of the game, and then it gives you a clear place to do the final score and the scale to put everybody on. And basically, I think that every aspect of this game is very well envisioned artistically. The only gripes I would have is that the cardboard tokens for the players are so thick that the plastic base you have to put them on, it kind of like does kind of scrunch them a little bit. I know that this is pretty common with any cardboard standee, so not a big deal. And then the card quality is very flimsy, so you might want to, if you find yourself really enjoying this game, you might want to sleeve your cards. So my overall reaction and the Sallen Coefficient for this game are going to be a little bit different here, and I've got kind of a theory on why my personal opinion is a little bit higher than what I would want to apply to everybody else. So I'm going to say that the Brady Bunch game is a very solid party game, social deduction game. If you're not into social deduction, then you shouldn't probably even be continuing to listen right now unless you just want to hear how I justify my opinion, which is totally valid. But the thing is, like, if you're not looking for social deduction, I'm not saying, like, get this game. It's going to make social deduction great for you. It's that if you like the idea of this, it's very well executed, and for that reason, gets a very solid 7 on the Sallen Coefficient scale. My own personal opinion of this game is higher. It's actually an 8. And I've got a theory on this, and that is the founder's fallacy of board game reviewers. I think that if I say that a game is extremely good to my audience, and then my audience buys it, they're going to inherently, the luster of finding that diamond in the rough that made me go, hey, you should really check this out, is going to go away for them. I mean, to a certain extent, you might be able to hear the echoing thoughts in your head of all the positive things I said about it and find those things and be able to focus on those. So, I mean, that's, of course, a different thing, but I honestly think that when you play this game, I want to say, expect it to be a 7, because then maybe it will give you some realistic expectations, because I went into this game thinking, it's going to be a mass market party game, and it may or may not even work. I was totally blown away when it was super functional, and not just functional, it was really it was a very entertaining. There was a lot of laughing at the table, and the fact that we were all acting like kids, it was almost got me into the mindset of wanting to role play like one of the Brady Bunch children, which is just what have you done to me? So it's, to me, it's just really hilarious to think that this game had that sort of a profound effect on me. Now, all these big words and excitement that I'm throwing at this game, for that reason, I say expect less, and maybe you'll be more impressed. And so this founder's fallacy that I'm saying is because I expected nothing, I feel like I've discovered something cool. And that's not going to happen for you if you've watched my video and go buy this. So that's the reason that there's a discrepancy between the Sallen Coefficient, the rating that I would apply towards, I would hope would apply towards other people's tastes as well, versus my personal opinion, which is something that I personally don't want to assume that you're going to also get on board with. So anyway, that is the Brady Bunch Party Game. If you're really looking for something that is a social deduction game with fluid teams that has a very clean and inviting art style and presentation, and it just works, then go ahead, download like I did. Don't follow the rule book on this. The rulebook says hum the Brady Bunch theme song 8 times throughout the game. Absolutely not. I downloaded the Spotify playlist of the theme song to the Brady Bunch, and I just put it on shuffle play. And really, you don't listen to it a whole ton, but it worked really well for this setting. Every time that we had to secretly peek at cards, I just would put that on, and then the players would be like, it's done. You were never spending a whole ton of time waiting for other players to look at stuff. It was just a very clean and nice experience. So go ahead, download the theme to the Brady Bunch party game to the actual TV show, and then play this Brady Bunch party game and have yourself a Brady Bunch party. And HGTV recently purchased the house from the Brady Bunch for $2.4 million. They're gonna be renovating it, so this is kind of an appropriate game to be playing right now. It's contextually appropriate. So if any of those things sound good to you, know that this might look like a mass market game, but there's more than meets the eye. And I hope that is your experience as well with the Brady Bunch Party Game. I'm Joe Sallen. Thank you for watching the Sallen Coefficient. I'll catch you on the next video review.
Check out more from Joe right here on the YouTube page for The Good, the Bored, the Ugly under the playlist, The Sallen Coefficient. Also, find podcast episodes of The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly releasing weekly and tackling topics as well as reviewing and hyping games from many different perspectives. Also, the Longview podcast is hosted by Joe, and it covers one game for 1 to 2 hours. Find those audio programs on iTunes.